is Creality's new high combo multicolor surprise. We put it head-to-head against its much pricier big brother. Moreover, we actually raised the bar with 8-color, 26-hour prints. But is all this vibrant color really worth the high waste? The results will either shock or please you. And could this truly be the quietest printer we've ever tested? It's on next to me. From rescuing broken figures to crafting glow-in-the-dark lightsabers, join our high combo adventure as we find out if this budget machine is Creality's new multicolor champion. This is gerGO, and you're watching gerGO Print 3D, the YouTube channel where my little nephew Levi and I tackle fun projects, explore amazing devices, and have a blast with cutting-edge gadgets. Our videos come with curated, translation-ready subtitles and chapter markers for your convenience. Before we dive deep into this exciting printer, a big thank you to Geekbuying.com for sending over the Creality High Combo for us to test and review. As always, they generously provided the printer, but they have no influence on our opinions or the content of this video. This review is based purely on our own unbiased experiences and no money changed hands. We'll also be trying out some pretty unique filament later on, courtesy of G2 Systems, so stick around for that. Alright, let's get this Creality High Combo out of the box, and Levi is eager to help. He was especially keen to use the new pocket knife we recently engraved for him. Maybe a little too keen, judging by the band-aid on his finger you might spot in the second take. His defense? I still have 9 fingers left. Ah, the risky life of 3D printer reviewers. Morbid jokes aside, inside we find the CFS unit and its accessories right on top. Instructions are provided detailing 6 steps for unboxing the printer itself. I'm not sure how closely we followed those steps, but we soon had the main components out. First the gantry, then the build plate. Speaking of the build plate, this double-sided epoxy resin sheet feels smoother and, as we discovered, provides significantly better adhesion than the typical PEI plates on our other printers. It performed so well, in fact, that I've already ordered an identical one for our K2 Plus. It was only about $33 on AliExpress, and conveniently, the latest Creality print slicer includes the necessary profiles for it. By the way, if you're curious about our full experience with the K2 Plus and how it stacks up against other brands, you can find that comparison in this video. Back to the high combo. With the base being the last item out, it was time for assembly. This process is very straightforward, so much so, and perhaps because Levi is getting quite skilled, that I let him handle most of it. He slid the gantry into place, plugged in and neatly covered the Z-motor wires and secured the 4 main screws while I focused on connecting the 2 head wiring, you know why. To finish up, we attached the spool holder and filament guide, peeled off the screen protector, and just like that, we had what looked like a working printer. At least that was the hope. Time to power it on and check. One of the very first things we noticed? Silence. When idle, this printer makes practically no noise at all, which was a fantastic surprise. The boot sequence completed without a hitch. Already a smoother start than we had with the Kobra 3. Do you remember that unboxing? If not, you can watch the drama unfold in this earlier video where it failed to boot due to a loose 2-head connection, all our fault. But it was smooth sailing here with the high combo. I connected it to Wi-Fi and Creality Cloud, and it passed all the initial startup checks. This was another improvement compared to our K2 Plus experience, where the checks initially failed until we performed a firmware update, as shown in this video. Interestingly, the high combo also prompted for an automatic firmware update right away, which we completed, of course. You might have noticed during assembly that I didn't connect the CFS unit immediately, and that was intentional. I wasn't keen on the standard method of securing the included filament buffer using double-sided tape. Instead, my plan was to first print this downloadable snap-on buffer holder for a more secure mount. As you can see from the print history, courtesy of Creality Cloud, printing that holder was the very first task we gave the high combo. Think of it as our practical alternative to a 3D Banshee. It turned out great, printed using the Hyper PLA that came with the K2+. I did make a slight modification to the original STL file first, lowering the mounting point a bit, ensuring the shorter data cable could comfortably reach the port on the back of the CFS unit. For the STL file, check out the description below. And we are still not quite ready to print from the CFS. Why? Well, this CFS unit is identical to the one that came with our K2+. And based on our experience, these units can have problems retracting filament, especially with spools other than Creality's own. Even official Creality spools tend to be iffy when near empty. Fortunately, there is an easy, self-printable fix, which I've improved and already implemented on our K2+. Since we already had the refined print files ready, we just reprinted them quickly on the K2 for the high combo before even trying multicolor prints with it. Let's not get into the details now. Please make sure to subscribe because we'll cover this specific mod, my improvements and its effect in a future dedicated video. Now for the main attraction, multicolor printing using the CFS. We started with this cute mini Beaver model using 3 colors of PLA, which involved about 40 color changes. To save filament, we reduced the flushing volume multiplier down to 0.7 in the slicer. The print took roughly 6 hours and was ultimately a success. As expected, with reduced flushing, the color separation isn't perfectly sharp. You can definitely see some slight mixing between colors, but the CFS handled all the filament changes correctly. A good first multicolor result. The next print involves a bit of a backstory. You might remember this large 4-color Onix figure from our second video covering the K2+. We had some initial trouble getting it right back then, but eventually succeeded. Be sure to watch that video here if you've missed it. Well, tragedy struck recently when that original print was accidentally broken. Leaving Levi, well, you could say he was pretty heartbroken. He asked for a replacement, so the high combo stepped up to the challenge. This was a relatively long print, clocking in at about 13 hours with around 200 color changes and consuming roughly 300 grams of PLA, including supports and the purge material. The result? Fantastic. Levi was absolutely thrilled. Comparing it side by side with the original print from the K2+, using the exact same filament spools and similar settings, honestly, the surface finish on this new high combo version looks just a little bit smoother and cleaner. That's quite a surprise and impressive for a Batslinger design. And the good news? I managed to repair the broken original using a 3D pen, so now we both have an Onix sitting proudly on our shelves. Continuing through our print history with the high combo, a test of dimensional accuracy, this time with the FS on S1 Pro providing the counterpoint. We printed this gear phone stand, splitting the model in half. One part printed here on the high combo, the other on the K2+. The crucial test, do these two halves fit together? Yes, perfectly. And this tells us the core mechanics and calibration of the high combo are precise and notably match the accuracy on the K2+. Why is this significant? Because when we tried printing this very same stand on our S1 Pro, the parts fused together due to tolerance issues inherent in its delta motion system. So, for demonstrating excellent dimensional accuracy, that's one more merit badge for the Creality High. Throughout all these prints, one feature consistently impressed us: the build plate. We've often battled with bad adhesion issues, especially with PLA on printers like our Anycubic Kobra 3 or when printing larger models on the Sobol SV08. But this high combo epoxy resin plate is fantastic. The stock slicer preset set the bed temperature for PLA at just 50 degrees Celsius, noticeably lower than the 60-65 degrees we typically use. Yet prints stick incredibly well. We've almost completely stopped using brims, even for models with small contact areas. And the best part, once the print finishes and the plate goes down, parts usually just pop right off with minimal effort. It's a huge convenience. It works so well. I've put links in the description to similar epoxy resin plates on AliExpress in case you want to upgrade your other printers. I will. And if you're down there and find tips like this helpful, please take a moment to hit the like button in that area. It really helps the channel. Thank you if you did. And remember how quiet the high combo was when idle? It's remarkably quiet during printing too. Our measurements show it stays comfortably below 50 decibels during most operations. Compared to many other printers we own, including its bigger Creality sibling, this is easily the quietest printer currently in our collection. That's a significant quality of life trait, especially for long prints or if your printer shares your living or working space. Okay, we've seen the high combo handle 3 and 4 colors reliably, but then we had an idea. The high combo comes with one 4-input CFS unit, and we also have the identical CFS unit from our K2 Plus combo. It felt like a wasted opportunity not to try combining them for 8-color printing. The wiring was relatively straightforward, essentially daisy chaining the second unit into the connection loop between the printer and the filament buffer port. My only real uncertainty was whether the printer could supply enough power for both CFS units simultaneously, as the documentation does recommend an external power supply for this kind of setup. So first, a quick test. We sliced and printed this small 8-color wheel. It took a little while, but it came out perfectly. The printer successfully accessed and switched between all 8 filaments loaded across both CFS units without needing external power. This was very promising. With the concept proven, it was time for the ultimate torture test. This highly detailed Monkey D. Luffy model, printing 4 figures at once to optimize filament usage. Sliced for 8 colors, the estimated print time was 26 hours, involving a staggering 620 color changes. We started the print and let it run. It wasn't entirely flawless though. According to the logs, around 2 a.m. deep into the night, a color change error occurred, pausing the printer. But here's the crucial part. When I checked it at 5 a.m., I simply pressed the retry button on the screen and the print resumed perfectly from where it left off. No harm done, aside from the 3-hour delay. Excluding that pause, the print finished successfully within the predicted 26 hours. That's just one recoverable error in over 620 changes, an impressively low error rate of about 0.16%. And look at the results. 4 beautiful, clean, correctly colored Luffy figures. Now for the direct comparison. If the high combo could manage this, surely its big brother could too, right? We ran the exact same print with identical slicer settings on the K2 Plus, also using the very same 2 CFS units daisy chained together. The experience was different. Here the slicer predicted a faster 22-hour print time, but interestingly, the final print duration also clocked in at 26 hours. Again, excluding time spent paused for color change errors. Because yes, pauses, there were 5 of them here. Each time the printer stopped and required manual intervention to resume. Investigating the logs suggested these were likely false triggers from the filament runout sensor inside the tool head. And unfortunately, some of these resume attempts turned out not to be clean. The printer sometimes used the wrong filament after restarting, resulting in these obvious red stripes where there should be skin color on Luffy's stomach. 5 missed changes out of 620 equates to a 0.81% error rate, significantly higher than the high combo's single, easily recoverable error. Furthermore, the K2 Plus print also suffered a physical failure. A support structure broke mid-print, affecting the head brim area. This led to one figure missing its head brim almost entirely, and another nearby figure being slightly damaged. While I was able to fix the main damage by reprinting just the missing head brim and attaching it with my 3D pen, if anything, I would have expected less of these kinds of issues on a Core XY. So let's compare the final results side by side. The high combo delivered 4 complete, correctly colored figures despite one minor recoverable pause. The K2 Plus delivered figures with noticeable color errors and physical damage due to multiple sensor-related errors and a support failure. While the overall surface quality is broadly similar between the two, perhaps even slightly cleaner on the high combo print, the reliability difference in this demanding 8-color scenario was stark. The high combo proved much more dependable. We also compared the material usage. We weighed the finished figures and the waste material, poop, supports, and perch tower from both prints. As expected, with identical settings, the weights were very similar. Approximately 70 grams of useful weight for the 4 figures combined, compared to roughly 350 grams of perch poop, plus another 70 grams of supports and perch tower. That's a total of about 420 grams of waste for 70 grams of actual printed models, 6 times more waste than useful material. Yes, that's an insane amount of filament waste, a common drawback of current multicolor systems like the CFS. But here's where the K2 Plus could have a redeeming factor, its larger build plate. We could potentially fit about 28 of these Luffy figurines on its build plate in one go. If you could successfully print that many, the 420 grams of waste would be split across all 28 figures, coming out to just 15 grams of waste per 17.5 gram figurine. Compare that to the high combo where we might only fit 15 figures. The waste per piece would almost be double at 28 grams. So besides other potential benefits of the K2's enclosed heated build chamber, its significantly larger build area could dramatically reduce your per piece material cost for multicolor batch printing if it could complete such a large complex print successfully. In fairness to the K2 Plus, it did come with a spare filament runout sensor. Prompted by this humbling experience, we've now installed that spare sensor. It's very likely this will improve its reliability. However, I don't think our household needs any more Luffy figures right now, so we won't be rerunning this specific 26-hour 8-color torture test just to check. Putting this all in perspective with one other multicolor printer we've used extensively, the Anycubic Kobra 3 combo. Our experience over 6 months and thousands of color changes shows it to be exceptionally reliable in terms of color changes. Literally 0 errors there. However, as mentioned before, we constantly battle bad adhesion issues with it. The Creality High combo, while not absolutely perfect in our 8-color torture test, seems to strike a really compelling balance. It offers very good reliability combined with that fantastic hassle-free bad adhesion. Alright, time for our final test print with the high combo, a lightsaber for that oversized Lego figure we printed a while back. And if you haven't seen that massive print yet, be sure to check out that video right here. This project started when G2 Systems generously offered to send us sample spools of their new glow-in-the-dark Conjure filaments. We were happy to accept, as we've had consistently good experiences with their Conjure PLA line before. I noticed a small typo in their confirmation email. It said "grow in the dark." I sent them some quick feedback about it, thinking nothing more of it. Until the filament actually arrived, lo and behold, the labels on the spools also had the "grow in the dark" spelling. When I mentioned this funny mistake to Levi, his eyes lit up and he said, "I have an idea." He suggested we print this specific telescoping lightsaber model. And here's how Levi's idea played out on camera.
So, we printed this lightsaber from Conjure glow in the dark filament. So, let's test it out. And it really worked.
Wow, it really grew.
Dark Levi.
Now for the printing details. We printed most of the lightsaber parts, including the handle, right here on the high combo. We actually printed the handle in 2 separate pieces to make it easier to slide into the Lego figure's rigid hand without stressing the plastic. We also printed some small test rings first to dial in that perfect friction fit. And for the telescoping blade itself, we used the Conjure glow-in-the-dark rainbow filament variant they sent. And we actually printed that part simultaneously on the K2 Plus while the high combo worked on the handle. Our thanks again to G2 Systems for sending the filament over. I've included links in the description below for you to check if the filaments are already available on their website. One final touch Levi hasn't seen yet. I've since integrated a small LED light into the handle to really make the blade illuminate. I got these cheap USB LED lights from AliExpress for less than $1 each. And even without the LED, the filament itself has a very noticeable and pleasant afterglow once the lights go off, confirming its good quality glow material. So, after all these prints and experiments, what's our final verdict on the Creality High Combo? Let's quickly recap. Setup was incredibly easy. Quietness, top marks. Both idle and printing. It's the quietest we have. And the bed adhesion is simply fantastic. Single color print quality is solid, and multicolor performance with the CFS was very reliable, earning maybe just an A- only because of that single easily recoverable error during our demanding 8-color test. Now, circling back to our title question, is the multicolor capability worth the high waste? We saw the waste can be significant, 6 times the useful material in our Luffy print, but we also discussed how batching prints, especially on larger machines like the K2 Plus, can drastically reduce the relative waste per part. More importantly, even if you aren't doing massive multicolor runs, the convenience of having 4 or even 8, 12, 16 filaments loaded and ready to print at the click of a button is a huge quality of life improvement that, for many users, absolutely makes the system worthwhile. So, is the high combo a multicolor champion? All at its price point? Yes, we think it punches way above its weight. It is a definite recommendation from us. Who is the Creality High Combo for? We think it is an excellent choice for users wanting reliable, easy-to-use multicolor printing without breaking the bank. It's great for hobbyists, families printing together, and even advanced users interested in experimenting with that 8, 12, 16 color potential we demonstrated. And remember to subscribe if you want to see that CFS mod video soon. We want to give another shout out to Geekbuying.com. If you're considering purchasing the Creality High Combo, the K2 Plus, the Kobra 3, or really any 3D printer or accessory, we highly recommend checking them out. They offer a huge selection from many top brands, at competitive prices. Plus, they usually have quick delivery from local warehouses in Europe and the US, meaning you get your gear faster. You get the same warranty and return terms as buying directly. Please consider using our affiliate links and any available coupon codes you find there in the video description below. It helps support the channel at no extra cost to you. We've mentioned the K2 Plus quite a bit today, and if you want to see all our adventures and tests with it, you can find our complete playlist here. And for our full journey with the Anycubic Kobra 3 combo, check out this playlist over here. We use all these wonderful machines to go print 3D. Thank you for watching another gerGO Print 3D video all the way to the end.